Want to give you this final bit about what the expectations are within the United States as we look at the U.S. economy. Then we're going to look at something from the Australian economy. I want to give you this from former CIA analyst Larry Johnson. He appeared with Daniel Davis today and offered key thoughts about an article that they published over at his Sonar 21 about the demand for more Patriot missiles. As he noted, he offered key thoughts that might linger in the mind regarding the U.S. political demands for more U.S. military spending in the face of the unconstitutional military attacks that already have drawn away so many munitions. The fact is, as Larry's Sonar 21 notes, and there's the hyperlink if anybody wants to read the article, the Chinese government is restricting the supply of essential minerals that are necessary for things like Patriot missile navigation.
The Pentagon is saying is the solution to that problem.
New budget requests from the armed forces call for nearly 14,000 new missiles and more than 850 THAAD interceptors in 2027 alone. A major increase as the U.S. moves to rebuild depleted stockpiles and boost military readiness.
We've got to actually appropriate that money for the right things, the things we're going to need to fight the wars that we're in right now. So, yes, I think the president has rightly requested $1.5 trillion for this year's defense budget. We've got the NDAA in hand. Now let's start getting that money appropriated so we can start this buildup.
I mean, come on, Larry. I mean, look, the reason why those things didn't work is because, I don't know, you're just not going to be able to go through it. And that's of course, that's on the offensive side. That's not working. But our air defense systems, as Ted Postal shows, just aren't working. Why are we just going to say, yeah, let's just get a bunch more of them and that will solve the problem?
Yeah, it's that Saturday Night Live skit with, more cowbell. That's it. It's just more cowbell. What they fail to understand here, I mean, to me, this is shocking. It's like, if you're going to hey, Danny, I'm going to pay you $10,000 to bake a cake, but I'm not going to give you any flour or eggs. Good luck. You're going to sit there and go, how the hell am I going to bake a cake with no flour and eggs? It'll be, I can maybe bake something, but it ain't the cake.
I can bake something, but
and so in this situation, there are two critical rare earth minerals that are used to produce magnets, and the magnets are vital, critical components of the Patriot system for navigation, steering, for what's called slew, or the rotation around the axis. I learned a new word in the process of all this. China controls all that, and China has told us, you're not getting any more. No, we're not selling you these rare earth mineral magnets so that you can build weapons that you're going to use against us. Not going to happen.
Thanks. Larry's got it, man. Larry's got it. Now, to look at that, let's talk about sales of things and economics. Now, if we can pull away the Chinese discussion and the international intrigue and warfare and strategies and tactics and things like that, and look at the effects of Donald Trump's policies, regardless of he disregards the Constitution. Look at the Congress totally flouting their responsibility to impeach him and the Senate to put him on trial and then remove him. All those things are pertinent to the conversation. Those are very important. Those are part of the outgrowth of the moral idea of you having a right to be left alone. And supposedly the government was set up to protect you. Of course, that's tautological because the government is forcing you to pay for it. But they created a constitution with certain rules, like the president doesn't just go off and willy-nilly attack people in foreign countries or blow people up in foreign seas without a declaration of war or without letters of marque and reprisal. So it's fairly simple stuff, right? The effects of it on the consequentialist side, as we pull further and further away from the moral side, also have moral components because they harm people's lives, right? Okay, so let's look at world economics here. An example of something that should be getting a lot more attention from, as I mentioned at the start of the show, Australia. So I don't know whether Tim Humphreys or anybody else from Australia is watching right now, who might be harps. But here's the headline: Australia's largest aluminium smelter wins $2.5 billion lifeline from a taxpayer fund. Now, initially, I saw that headline and it was in this grid of different stories that popped up. And I said, I got to focus on other stuff. And I said, wait a minute. Aluminum smelting. They got a taxpayer fund. They're getting a bailout. I wonder why they need a bailout. I wonder. So I went over to the article, and guess what? That's right. Just like the United States getting hit with tariffs, and just like people who actually want to get a product for a reasonable price because it's part of their manufacturing chain, well, this Australian company is getting screwed because of what's happening in the Middle East. Yes, it's a $2.5 billion rescue that secures smelter jobs, they said. Now, this comes to us from the Daily Mail. $2.5 billion. I don't know whether that's Australian, but I believe it is because it's written for the Australian Associated Press. Thousands of workers in and around Australia's largest aluminium smelter will keep their jobs after the state and federal governments agreed to a multi-billion dollar bailout. Why would they need a bailout? The Tomago aluminium smelter in the New South Wales Hunter region faced closure in 2028 due to forecasts of, what's that? Wait, what? Huh? Higher energy prices. Wait a minute. You mean Australia's green proposals and policies over the past 15 years that shut down a bunch of coal mines, made them more dependent on imported fuel, are screwing them over now? What? I don't understand. You mean it's made it more expensive? The smelter is the single largest electricity user in the nation and consumes about 10% of the state's power supply. Not good. The Australian energy regulator, why do you have to have one? Maybe that's part of the problem. Forecast energy contract prices to double by 2029. Double. Hey, consumers, have fun. When I was in Australia, we toured a plant because I went on a Rotary tour. The Rotary folks sent young people from our area to Australia. And we got to meet with a bunch of dudes who ran their own businesses and were in the Rotary in Queensland. And so we went to one business. The guy made dishwashers, and it was really interesting. Another guy made fishing lures, and we got to watch that. I went to a chicken abattoir, saw how they killed chickens. I mean, it was pretty crazy. Like the blood was dripping all over our heads. Went to a kangaroo slaughterhouse. Actually, it wasn't a slaughterhouse. It was a meat packing house. They had already been slaughtered. So it's an interesting place. And yes, I went underground into a coal mine in Australia and saw how it works. So very interesting. And the government is screwing things up, whether it's the overall Aussie government or it's the separate New South Wales government. They got to get out of this. They got to stop this nonsense. And they can, because they got plenty of coal, have very cheap energy, just like they have in China. But they won't do it. Unfortunately, because they took the advice of people like Peter Garrett of Midnight Oil, as good as he is on anti-war stuff, he wants to wage war against consumers using government policies because he thinks that somehow he can determine for other property owners whether or not a coal plant nearby will be destructive for them. Now, there's a lot mixed in there. Is the coal plant a corporation that's getting a special favor from the government? Well, then I can understand how somebody might want to stand up against it. But when it comes to actual questions about, is coal contributing to some sort of anthropogenic climate change? No, it's not. That you can't prove it. None of the data sets are valid. The whole thing is ridiculous. So get that out of it. Make it a property rights situation. If somebody is downwind or nearby a coal place and they've got a property rights claim and it's getting damaged, that's a tortious claim. And they are going to be in an imbalance if they're going up against a giant corporation. So stop allowing state forms of the government to allow for businesses to incorporate so that they are protected. Stop that. And just allow people to sue if they're getting damaged. So here's the deal. After months of negotiation, electricity accounts for more than 40% of its operating costs at the Tomago aluminum plant. And they warned it would not have remained commercially viable if prices rose. And of course, prices are rising because they don't have what they used to do, which was a lot of coal. They've got coal all over Australia. It's everywhere in Australia. They're rich in coal. Like, seriously, you dig under the ground, you find coal. It's so stupid. After months of negotiations, the New South Wales government and the Commonwealth have agreed to commit $2.5 billion to assist when they shouldn't need to assist in entering into long-term energy contracts in 2029. Tomago Aluminum has agreed to invest a further $1.1 billion to decarbonize, there you go, and upgrade its facilities to better adapt to fluctuations in renewable energy supply and demand. So part of this is the pressure they put on these businesses to follow the green motif, the green police, which is destructive. And then part of it is they can't rely on the supplies of coal and electricity supplied by coal, so they've had to switch over to natural gas. But they can't get natural gas from Australia. Where are they getting natural gas? From the Middle East. But they can't get it from the Middle East now because the United States attacked Iran. And the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz are locked up. So the price of natural gas and the price of fuel and the price of pretty much everything else that used to go through them has doubled. What a stupid situation. That's just Australia. That's the world economy. Just a quick reminder, sorry to have to deliver the news, everybody in the United States, but you likely already know a lot about this. Here is the domestic situation. And Scotty Besson, beam up. Come back to reality. Oh, look, says Ron Filipkowski, the fiscal conservatives are running the government again. Here's the Kobisi letter breaking. The U.S. government officially posts its largest July budget deficit in history at minus $432 billion for July due to an acceleration in federal spending. What? Interest on U.S. debt rose by $26 billion from last July's levels to an alarming $118 billion just for the interest on the debt for the month. This puts total interest expense for fiscal year 2026 up to $1.17 trillion. Interest expense for fiscal year 2026. It will easily reach 1.4 to 1.5 trillion by the end of the year. Easily. And they want more military spending for the Patriot missiles that they can't build because they can't get the stuff from China. As a result, interest expense has officially surpassed both national defense and Medicare spending. In other words, the U.S. government now spends more money just on interest than it does to fund the entire U.S. military or provide health care for seniors. As Kobisi letter writes, we cannot afford higher interest rates. Yeah, which is why yesterday, Gerald Celente and David Knight were talking about it. It's coming. Don't worry. It's coming, as Clutch said. Get your gold, get your silver, get your precious metals, get your canned goods, and get your water. Get something to try to heat the house. Store some fuel. And this, an example. This is amazing. Minnesota Senate nominee. Just ridiculous. I said the arrogance. Let me just show you this. I'll say what I said first. Sorry, whichever. It doesn't matter which way it goes. The arrogance is amazing. This is the kind of mindset that GOPers used to cite when justifiably criticizing leftists for green funding and climate change alarmism. But instead, this is their agenda. You can sacrifice, my friends, because they want to overthrow the government of Iran. That's right. Here we go.
I think right now, at least just kind of keeping a stiff upper lip. Maybe you take one less trip to Starbucks, and so that gas goes a little further until this thing is over and these gas prices come back down again. Let's just try to be patriots about this.
So you're not patriotic if you oppose them engaging in unconstitutional military attacks that disrupt the supply of fuel so much. You should instead show your patriotism by not engaging in what you would like to do in your life. And she's going to minimize your choice of your daily activities by claiming it's just a trip to Starbucks. She's going to deflect. She's going to use legerdemain to say that sort of thing with utter contempt for your choices in your life because they're clearly not significant. It's no more important than a trip to Starbucks. That's the way they feel about you. That's how they're minimizing these things because they have to defend themselves. They have to defend their own hubris, their own opposition to your natural rights. Unbelievable. And we've got Lutnick. Howard Lutnick, as said, is lucky. And here he is with, you got it, Larry Kudlow. Lawrence Kudlow doesn't ask any questions. I said, Howard Lutnick is lucky that Larry Kudlow doesn't push back against his utter nonsense. Kudlow is claiming, Lutnick is claiming that auto tariffs are bringing manufacturing back to the United States. Well, guess what, Howard? They've lost jobs. Let's go with this. Check it out.
Well, I'm here for Car Week in Monterey, and these 232 tariffs are winning the day. I mean, I've never been more popular than I am at Car Week because these tariffs are bringing auto manufacturing home, and it feels so good, and all the auto manufacturers are here. Right after I'm done with you, I'm spending some time with Jim Farley where we've got a big announcement because Ford is going to rock us with bringing manufacturing back to America.
You remember when, Jeffrey Toobin was in that call and like he exposed himself to some other workers or something like that? That's essentially what Lutnick is doing to you. Like if he were to stand up and he didn't have any pants on right now, that's the level of respect that that guy has for you. Lucky Lutnick. So Howard, hey, Howard, guess what? You either don't know what you're talking about or you do know the truth and you're lying. So here is Fact Post. Hey, Howard, do you follow Fact Post? Could you take a second to look it up? Lutnick, these tariffs are winning the day. We're bringing auto manufacturing home. Auto manufacturing jobs are down 11,000 under Trump.
Well, I'm here for Car Week in Monterey.
So there you go. Car Week in Monterey, huh? He gets to travel at your expense and he gets to lie at your expense. Following up yesterday's report on the decline in real wages that we went over last night. Remember that? And we showed how Stephen Moore had excluded a major portion of information because he was only looking at people who had jobs. Well, here's a little more. This is from Roberto Rios. Truth Nuke. Measured in gold, the story of American wages is an ugly one. Here it is. Will Tanner says, Forbes, describing the trend, noted, the bottom line is that in terms of gold, wages have fallen about 87%. To get a stronger sense of what that means, consider that back in 1965, the minimum wage was 71 ounces of gold per year. In 2011, the senior engineer earned the equivalent of 63 ounces of gold. So, measured in gold, we see that senior engineers now earn less than what unskilled laborers earned back in 1965. That's right. Today's highly skilled professional is making less in real comparative terms than yesterday's unskilled professional. But don't tell anything like that to Howard Lutnick. Oh, don't show him this chart about inflation either. This comes from Bar Chart. Inflation is now higher in the United States than Mexico for the first time in recent history. This is Mexico in the purple, the United States in the red. So it's now higher. Under Trump. Because Trump said inflation is under control. We were handed a really bad deal. Oh, and this. Look, Steve Ratner, once again, left-winger, coming through with the truth. Here we go. GDP numbers. Workers' share of GDP. This is not the white-collar guys. This is the workers, not the administrators of the corporations. The worker share of GDP is at its lowest point on record, whereas the corporate share is now at record highs. This dynamic may exacerbate as Trump's fiscal policies disproportionately benefit corporations and the wealthy. And even though he's a left-winger, he is correct. Everything is steered towards pumping up the stock market and pumping up the corporations. And it's not filtering down to the workers. Part of the reason is because they've destroyed productivity. So they're trying to continue to pump money into the corporations so that the corporations can look viable. And they're doing it through the back door, through the Federal Reserve, and through fascism with the U.S. government, and through tariffs to protect U.S. businesses. But the problem is that for many of the U.S. businesses that aren't the special businesses, they're getting flushed out. That's why unemployment is up. That's why living standards are down. I feel like Al Gore. Everything that should be up is down, and everything that should be down is up. But it's true. Because they're trying to make it look like the United States is a viable economy through corporate fascist banking, prodding up of the system, just like they're doing in Australia with that energy company, with that aluminium company. It's a backdoor bailout, and it's constant. It's a flow of money. It's a flow of money from the United States, and they're going to keep it going through the election at least. After the election, watch out, because things are going to start to collapse. They can't maintain this. The boom-bust cycle has to bust. Here's Fred Wellman. This is unsustainable for working people and those on fixed incomes. We are falling further behind. This, Charlie Bellio, has price increases over the last 7 years. Look at this chart. New cars up 22%. Used cars up 29%. Gee, it'd be nice if we still had some of those used cars to buy, but they got rid of them with the cash for clunkers concept under Obama. That was brilliant. Groceries up 33%. Oh, but just remove those from the statistics. We'll pretend they don't exist. Nobody has to eat. It's like being on the Abe Lincoln. Shelter, 35%. Family health insurance, 38%. Restaurants, 39%. That's okay. They don't have to be open. We can close restaurants. Everything's fine. It's lockdown 3.0. Transportation, 42%. Rickshaws, gasoline, 43%. Electricity, 43%. Auto insurance, 50%. Fuel oil, 56%. And if Trump continues to try to do this war of attrition and doesn't get an answer before the elections, it's going to be even higher. Home prices, 60%. Those are going to crash. You'll be able to get a lot on discount and auction through, you got it, bank auctions, because people are going to have to give up their homes. Dozen eggs, 76%. Ground beef, 81%. Coffee, 123% in the past 7 years. It's just winning, though, Lucky. Lucky Lutnick. Everything's cool, Lucky. Employment in the U.S. financial industry is going through a prolonged downturn. The financial industry shed 14,000 jobs in July to 9.09 million, the lowest since July of 2022. This marks the fifth consecutive monthly decline, totaling 59,000 lost. Now, finally, I'll give you this. Jason Sorens, as you know, my friend Jason, founder of the Free State Project, the man who for many years, was a professor at Dartmouth and started a wonderful after-school program, asked me to join him. And we gave scholarships out to kids to learn about Adam Smith and the Austrian School of Economics and ethics, natural rights, political philosophy, going all the way back to Aristotle. It was great. It was a terrific time. Well, Jason, as I noted, he's now with the American Institute for Economic Research in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. And Jason, a couple of weeks ago, actually now, but I wanted to bring this up, and he's going to be a guest on the show. I texted Jason today. He'll be with us when he's free to talk about this, because he wrote an excellent piece and offered excellent research looking at the disappointment of Brexit, which could have seen a great decrease in the regulatory burden on British people and the business atmosphere. But instead, you got it. They had all the anthropogenic climate change nonsense. They tried to shut down all sorts of businesses. They never fulfilled the promise of deregulation. So this is a very good piece. We'll discuss it further. But here it is. Britain's problems didn't begin with Brexit. As Jason wrote at the end of July, Brexit disappointed both its critics and supporters. But Britain's economic malaise runs much deeper than the 2016 referendum. So he did this as part of the 10-year anniversary of supposed Brexit, which isn't exactly Brexit. And he wrote, 10 years ago, Britons voted to leave the European Union, launching 3.5 years of tumultuous negotiations and domestic political ructions, only subsiding after the UK's official withdrawal in January 2020. It's tempting to see Brexit as a watershed moment in Britain's political economy. Britons themselves now tend to regret the choice rather than affirm it, with narrow majorities affirming that Brexit has been more of a failure, in quotes, and supporting restoring free movement with the EU in exchange for single market access. Well, contrary to some forecasts, Brexit has been closer to an economic blip than a disaster. So Jason starts to look comparatively at what happened in other countries. Have they fared really well while the UK wasn't faring well? Could it have been all caused by Brexit? Or are there other things to consider here? Figure 1 shows net disposable household income per capita in the UK and comparable countries. While Ireland has rocketed ahead of this whole group, it's difficult to see any worse economic performance in the UK compared to France and Germany since 2020, because France and Germany clamped down with regulations as well. So we've got this. We've got the UK is in black. Ireland is in green. Germany is in the mustard color. And France is in the light blue. Now, this is household disposable income per capita. Thousands of US dollars. Okay. So you can see here, things are not looking so good right now for Germany in particular. And for the UK, it's been a real mixed bag, which again tells you why Merz is getting out. But this low bar, no worse than France or Germany, reflects the deeper ailment in British politics. Brexit was merely one episode in a long series of abdications of responsibility by British leaders. Free market Brexiteers like Daniel Hannan assured us that Brexit would allow the UK to deregulate and improve competitiveness. It's the 24th of June, 2025. The years that followed the 2016 referendum didn't just reinvigorate our economy, our democracy, and our liberty. They improved relations with our neighbors, he forecast on June 21st, 2016. And he went on, quote, the United Kingdom is now the region's foremost knowledge-based economy. We lead the world in biotech, law, education, and audiovisual sector. The audiovisual sector, financial services, and software. New industries from 3D printing to driverless cars have sprung up around the country. Older industries, too, have revived as energy prices have fallen back to global levels. Steel, cement, paper, plastics, and ceramics producers have become competitive again. End quote. Well, writes Jason, none of that happened. The UK never undertook deregulation commensurate with the new barriers that Brexit imposed, such as new customs paperwork and inspections for goods traveling between the UK and the continent. So, yes, that's right. Once they split off, that added burdens. It didn't subtract burdens. And strict limits on Britons and Europeans moving to each other's countries for work was also part of the problem. According to a research briefing from the House of Commons Library, quote, most regulations made under the UK law authorizing repeal of EU regulations have not led to substantive policy changes. So much for Brexit's oversold transformative potential. We'll give you more of that when we get to chat with Jason, talk about his curiosity about the subject, and reflect on, again, the United States worker share GDP is at its lowest point on record, whereas the corporate share is near record highs because the U.S. government is still burdened with regulations. The U.S. government is subsidizing a lot of people in backdoor ways through the banking system, and the U.S. government is playing favorites with the tariff system. I'm going to give you this tomorrow night from Phil Magnus, who used to be with AIER and is now doing a lot of work for the Independent Institute. Trump's tariff plan B has arrived, and it's not going to be good.